Kira Johnson stepped through the big front doors of Ridgeview High School, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She wasn't nervous. She had done this before too many times to count. Her dad was in the military, which meant her family moved a lot. New schools, new towns, new faces.
It was always the same.
But this time, she told herself, maybe it would be different. Kira walked down the hallway, her dark curly hair tied back in a neat ponytail. Her sharp eyes took in everything: the lockers covered in stickers, the kids laughing in little groups, the way some of them turned to look at her as she passed. She knew what they were thinking. Who's that? Where did she come from? Then she heard the whispers. A girl with long blonde hair nudged her friend. Who's she? She said, not even trying to be quiet. The friend, a boy with glasses, shrugged.
Dunno.
New kid, I guess. Another boy, leaning against the lockers, smirked. Bet she won't last a week. Kira kept walking, her face calm.
She didn't react.
She had heard worse before. At her old school, kids had called her names just because she was different. At another school, a boy had tried to trip her in the hallway. She had dealt with it.
She always did.
But Ridgeview High didn't know her. They didn't know that Kira wasn't just some quiet new girl. They didn't know that when she wasn't in school, she was on the mat, training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They didn't know she had won championships. Most of all, they didn't know that if someone messed with her, they were in for a very big surprise. Kira reached her first class and took a seat near the back. She pulled out her notebook and waited for the teacher to start. Around her, the whispers continued. But Kira didn't care.
She was used to this.
And if anyone decided to push her,
well,
they'd regret it. The bell rang for lunch at Ridgeview High School, and students poured into the cafeteria like a noisy flood. The smell of pizza and chatter filled the air as kids lined up for food or claimed their usual tables. In the middle of all this chaos sat Tyler Carson, holding court at what everyone secretly called the bully table. Tyler wasn't just any troublemaker, he was the king of mean kids at Ridgeview. Taller than most 8th graders with shoulders like a football player, Tyler had learned long ago that when he yelled, people listened. When he pushed, people moved. And when he wanted something, he usually got it. His two sidekicks, Jake and Mike, laughed too loud at his jokes and followed him everywhere. They were like his personal fan club, always ready to back him up when he picked on someone. Today, as Tyler scanned the cafeteria with his pale blue eyes, they waited to see who would be his next target. That's when he spotted her. Kira Johnson sat alone at a small table near the windows. The new girl. The quiet one who didn't seem to care what anyone thought about her. Tyler's lips curled into a smirk as he noticed how small she looked compared to him.
Perfect.
Check this out, Tyler told his friends, cracking his knuckles. Time to teach the new kid how things work around here. Jake hesitated. I dunno, man. She seems kinda different. Mike nodded. Yeah. She doesn't look scared of anything. Tyler rolled his eyes. She's tiny. What's she gonna do? With that, he pushed back his chair so hard it fell over with a clatter, turning heads across the cafeteria. The usual whispers started as kids noticed Tyler on the move. Oh, Tyler's going after someone. Who is it this time? Oh no, it's that new girl. Kira was calmly eating an apple when Tyler's shadow fell across her table. She didn't look up right away, which made Tyler even madder. Hey, new girl, Tyler said in his most intimidating voice, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. You gotta pay the new kid tax. He held out his meaty hand. Hand over your lunch money. For the first time, Kira looked up. But she didn't look scared like Tyler expected. She didn't even look nervous. She just studied him with those dark, calm eyes like he was a mildly interesting bug. No, she said simply, and took another bite of her apple. The cafeteria got so quiet you could hear a pin drop. No one ever said no to Tyler. Ever. Tyler's face turned splotchy red. What did you say? He growled, leaning closer. Kira didn't back away an inch. She met his angry stare and said again, slowly and clearly, I said, no. A gasp rippled through the watching students. Someone dropped a spoon, and the clang sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. Tyler's mouth actually fell open. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Behind him, Jake and Mike exchanged nervous looks. No one had ever stood up to Tyler before.
No one was that brave.
Or that crazy. Tyler's hands clenched into fists. His whole body shook with anger. This tiny girl had embarrassed him in front of everyone. He couldn't let that stand. The rules of his world were simple. When someone challenged him, he had to crush them. But as Tyler prepared to make his next move, something strange happened. Kira didn't cower, didn't beg. She just kept watching him with those calm, knowing eyes. Almost like she was waiting for him to try something. And that's when the first tiny doubt crept into Tyler's mind. What if this new girl wasn't like the others? What if she had a reason for not being afraid? But it was too late to back down now. The whole cafeteria was watching. Tyler had to prove he was still the toughest kid at Ridgeview. Little did he know he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. The cafeteria buzzed with noise as students laughed and talked over lunch. Kira sat alone at a small table, quietly eating her food. She didn't mind being by herself. After so many moves, she was used to it. Across the room, Tyler Carson watched her with a mean grin. Tyler was the kind of kid who thought pushing people around made him cool. He was big for his age, with messy blonde hair and a loud voice that always demanded attention.
Most kids stayed out of his way.
But Tyler had noticed the new girl small, quiet, keeping to herself. The perfect target. Tyler elbowed his friend Jake. "Watch this," he snickered. Then he swaggered over to Kira's table, his heavy footsteps thumping against the cafeteria floor. A hush fell over the nearby tables as kids stopped talking to watch. They all knew what was coming. Tyler loved putting on a show. He slammed his hands down on Kira's table, making her tray jump. "Hey, new girl," he said in his nastiest voice. "You gotta pay the new kid tax. Hand over your lunch money." Kira didn't even look up. She took another bite of her sandwich. "No," she said simply. Tyler's face turned red.
No one ever said no to him.
"What did you say to me?" he growled. This time Kira looked up. Her dark eyes locked onto Tyler's. "I said no," she repeated calmly. The cafeteria got even quieter. Kids at nearby tables froze, their eyes wide. No one had ever stood up to Tyler before. Tyler's face twisted in anger. "You think you're tough?" he shouted. Then he shoved Kira hard with both hands. Kira stumbled back, but caught herself before she fell. Her ponytail swung as she straightened up. The look in her eyes changed from calm to dangerous. "You really don't want to do this," she warned. Tyler laughed meanly. "Oh, I do," he growled. He reached out and grabbed Kira's arm tight, his fingers digging in. That was his big mistake. The moment Tyler touched her, Kira moved like lightning. She twisted her arm in a special way that made Tyler's grip useless. Before he could react, Kira grabbed his wrist with both hands, turned her body, and used Tyler's own weight against him. Whoosh! Tyler suddenly found himself flying through the air. His back hit the cafeteria floor with a loud thump that echoed through the silent room. Before he could even gasp, Kira was on him. She pinned his arm in a way that made it hurt if he moved. "Still think I'm an easy target?" Kira asked, her voice cool as ice. Tyler's face was pure shock. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Let me go," he whined. The entire cafeteria was dead silent. Every single student was staring with their mouths open. No one could believe what they just saw. Tiny Kira had taken down the biggest bully in school like it was nothing. Finally, Kira let Tyler go. She stood up smooth as a cat while Tyler scrambled away, his face red with embarrassment. As Kira calmly picked up her lunch tray, the whispers started. "Did you see that? That was amazing. Tyler got owned." Kira just smiled to herself and kept walking. She knew this wouldn't be the last time someone tried to mess with her. But now, everyone at Ridgeview High would think twice before bothering the new girl again. Little did they know this was just the beginning. The entire cafeteria held its breath as Tyler's fingers tightened around Kira's arm. You could feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Every student in that room knew what usually happened next. The victim would either cry, run away, or give Tyler what he wanted. But Kira did something no one expected. She moved. And not just any movement, this was like watching a panther strike. One moment Tyler was looming over her, his face twisted with anger. The next moment, Kira's body became a whirlwind of motion. First, she stepped slightly to the side, making Tyler's grip work against him. Then, with a smooth twist of her hips that she'd practiced 1,000 times in training, Kira used Tyler's own weight and momentum against him. It happened so fast that the kids watching barely saw what happened. 1 second Tyler was standing tall, the next he was flying through the air like a rag doll. His back hit the cafeteria floor with a thunderous whump that echoed off the walls. The impact was so hard it made the silverware on nearby tables rattle. A collective gasp rose from the students. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others jumped to their feet to get a better view. No one had ever seen anything like this before. Tyler lay sprawled on the floor, blinking up at the ceiling with dazed confusion. His breath came in ragged gulps as he tried to understand what just happened. Before he could gather his thoughts, Kira was on him again. With practiced precision, she grabbed Tyler's right arm and twisted it into a position no arm was meant to go. This was called an armbar, a move Kira had mastered after years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. She applied just enough pressure to make it clear who was in control now. "Still think I'm an easy target?" Kira asked. Her voice wasn't loud or mean, just cold and steady like a winter stream. Tyler's face went through a series of expressions, shock, then anger, then finally fear as he realized he couldn't move. The pain in his arm was sharp and insistent. His free hand patted the floor helplessly. "And no," Tyler whimpered, his voice higher than anyone had ever heard it. "Let me go, please." The cafeteria, which had been frozen in silence, suddenly erupted in noise. "Did you see that? Oh my gosh, she destroyed Tyler. That was the coolest thing ever." Even the lunch ladies had stopped serving food to watch the scene unfold. Mr. Henderson, the usually grumpy math teacher who'd been monitoring the cafeteria, stood with his clipboard dangling forgotten at his side, his mouth hanging open. Kira held the armbar for just a moment longer, long enough for everyone to understand this wasn't luck or a fluke. Then she released Tyler with a small push that sent him scrambling backward like a crab. As Tyler clutched his sore arm, his face burned with a mixture of pain and humiliation. His two friends, Jake and Mike, hovered nearby but didn't dare step in. The unspoken rules of the schoolyard had just been rewritten before everyone's eyes. Kira stood up smoothly, adjusting her ponytail like she'd just finished a routine training session rather than humiliating the school bully. The way she moved, calm, controlled, completely unshaken, sent a clear message to everyone watching. This wasn't her first fight, and it probably wouldn't be her last. As Kira turned to walk away, the crowd of students instinctively parted for her like the Red Sea. Whispers followed in her wake, spreading the news of what had happened faster than any text message could. Tyler finally found his voice again. "This isn't over," he shouted, but his voice cracked halfway through, ruining the threat. Kira didn't even turn around. She just raised one hand in a casual wave as she kept walking. The message was clear. "Whenever you're ready for round 2, Tyler. I'll be waiting." The final bell rang at Ridgeview High, but no one rushed for the doors like usual. Instead, clusters of students lingered in the hallways, buzzing about the event that had shaken the school's social order the day the new girl destroyed Tyler Carson. Kira moved through the crowded halls with a new energy around her. Where before kids had either ignored her or whispered about her, now they openly stared with something like awe. A freshman boy actually tripped over his own feet while gaping at her. A group of girls from the volleyball team suddenly found reasons to walk the same direction she was going. Meanwhile, Tyler's usual entourage of hangers-on had mysteriously dwindled. Jake and Mike still followed him, but their laughter sounded forced now. The other kids who used to laugh at Tyler's cruel jokes suddenly had somewhere else to be when he walked by. In the principal's office, Mr. Granger rubbed his temples as he reviewed the cafeteria security footage for the 10th time. He'd seen plenty of fights over his 20 years at Ridgeview, but never one where a girl half the bully's size had flipped him like a pancake with such precision. The way she moved suggested training far beyond normal schoolyard scrapping. The school nurses report only deepened the mystery. Tyler had a bruised ego, but no serious injuries. The armbar had been applied with just enough pressure to control, not damage. Whoever this Kira Johnson was, she knew exactly how much force to use. Flashback 3 weeks earlier. Kira's father tightened the last strap on the moving truck. New duty station means new school, kiddo. You ready? Kira shrugged, running her fingers over the gold medals in her suitcase. 3 straight junior national jiu-jitsu championships. Same drill as always, Dad. Keep my head down. Don't draw attention. Her father gave her a knowing look. And if someone starts trouble? A ghost of a smile touched Kira's lips. Then they get the armbar.
Present day.
The school gossip mill worked overtime. Did you hear? She's some kind of martial arts genius. My cousin says she trained with Navy SEALs. I heard she broke a guy's arm at her last school. The rumors grew wilder with each retelling. The truth was impressive enough. Kira had been training since age 6 under her father's strict tutelage. Every military base they lived at had meant a new dojo, new instructors, new techniques to master. While other kids played video games, Kira drilled arm bars and hip tosses until they were as natural as breathing. Meanwhile, Tyler sat alone at lunch for the first time in years, pushing food around his tray. The memory of being flipped played on a loop in his mind. The worst part wasn't the physical pain, it was the way the entire school had seen him beaten. His reputation as the untouchable bully had evaporated in 30 seconds of humiliating footage that was undoubtedly circulating through every phone in school. New problem arises. As Kira packed up after last period, a shadow fell across her desk. Not Tyler, he wouldn't meet her eyes anymore, but a wiry girl with a black leather jacket and a nose ring. That was some move you pulled, the girl said. I'm Diaz, captain of the girls' wrestling team. She slid a flyer across the desk. We've got regionals next month. Could use someone with your skills. Kira studied the flyer. Part of her wanted to say, no staying invisible, had kept her out of trouble at past schools. But another part, the competitive part that loved the thrill of a challenge, stirred to life. Before she could answer, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Tyler stood red-faced, shoving a skinny 7th grader against the lockers. Old habits died hard. Kira and Diaz exchanged a look. Without a word, they both moved toward the disturbance. The crowd parted like magic as Kira approached. Tyler's head snapped up at the sudden silence. When he saw Kira, his hands dropped from the younger kid's shirt like he'd been burned. The message was clear. Ridgeview High had a new protector now. And Tyler? He was yesterday's news.
The morning announcements crackled over Ridgeview High speakers, but nobody paid attention. All eyes were glued to their phones, watching the now legendary cafeteria footage for the 100th time. Kira's takedown of Tyler had become more than just school gossip, it was a phenomenon. As Kira turned the corner toward her locker, the hallway fell into an eerie hush. Students pressed themselves against the lockers to give her space. A junior varsity football player actually flinched when she walked by. She sighed. This was exactly what she'd wanted to avoid. Then she saw it. Taped to her locker was a single, black and red flyer with bold letters. Open challenge. Ridgeview's Jiu-Jitsu champ vs West Side's reigning champion. Saturday night. Weston Gym. Be there. Kira's stomach dropped. She'd heard of the underground fight circuit that happened in abandoned gyms and warehouses across the city. Dangerous, illegal, definitely against her father's rules. Meanwhile, across town, Tyler Carson sat on the bleachers of the empty West Side High football field, nursing a soda. Across from him, Lord Marco the Mountain Rodriguez, a hulking 18-year-old who'd been held back twice and had fists like sledgehammers. So let me get this straight, Marco rumbled, cracking his knuckles. You want me to fight some tiny freshman girl? Tyler's face burned, but he pushed forward. She's not just some girl. She humiliated me. And if she humiliated me, that means she humiliated all of West Side by association. Marco threw back his head and laughed, a deep, booming sound. You're pathetic, Carson. but he leaned in, his breath reeking of chewing tobacco. I could use a warm-up fight before my real match next week. Consider your little problem handled. Back at Ridgeview, Kira stared at the flyer, her pulse racing. This wasn't just a challenge, it was a trap. She could ignore it, but then the rumors would start. Kira Johnson is a fraud. Kira's scared. Diaz from the wrestling team appeared at her shoulder. You seeing this crap? She ripped down the flyer. Marco Rodriguez is a monster. Last year he put a kid in the hospital. Kira's fingers tightened around her backpack straps. She'd faced bigger opponents before, but never in some back alley brawl with no rules, no referees. Then a new voice joined them, quiet, hesitant. You don't have to do this. They turned to see none other than Tyler Carson, standing alone for the first time since the cafeteria incident. His usual swagger was gone. Why do you care? Diaz snapped. Tyler wouldn't meet their eyes. Because Marco won't stop at winning. He'll try to break you. A muscle twitched in his jaw. I know, because it's what I would have done before. The bell rang, scattering students to class. But Kira remained frozen, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She could walk away, preserve her secret, or she could prove her strength. The abandoned Weston gym smelled of sweat, rust, and bad decisions. Kira stood in the dim lighting, her stomach twisting as the crowd of high schoolers roared around her. The makeshift fight ran really. Just taped off section of the basketball court felt smaller than it had in her imagination. Across from her, Marco Rodriguez stretched his tree trunk arms, his smirk revealing a chipped front tooth. Ready to be crushed, little girl? He taunted, cracking his neck. Diaz gripped Kira's shoulder. Last chance to bail. Nobody would blame you. Before Kira could answer, a familiar voice cut through the noise. She doesn't need to bail. Tyler Carson pushed through the crowd, his face set in grim determination. He tossed Kira a water bottle. Marco's got two weaknesses, he said quietly. He favors his left side after the 3rd minute, and he can't handle body shots. Kira blinked. Why are you helping me? Tyler scuffed his shoe against the floor. Because I was the bully. But you stood up for people. The fight begins. The crowd counted down 3, 2, 1, and Marco charged like a bull. Kira barely dodged the first swing. The second grazed her shoulder, sending fiery pain down her arm. She rolled away, her mind racing. Marco was stronger, but she was faster, smarter. Round 2 started with Marco breathing heavily. Just as Tyler predicted, he favored his left. Kira feinted right, then delivered 3 sharp jabs to his ribs. Marco wheezed. The turning point. In the 3rd round, Marco got desperate. He grabbed Kira's ponytail, a dirty move that made the crowd boo. Tyler lunged forward. Cheater. But Kira didn't need saving. She twisted like liquid, using Marco's grip to flip herself onto his back. Her legs scissored around his neck in a chokehold. Marco staggered. His face turned purple. Then thud, he collapsed unconscious. The aftermath. The crowd erupted. Diaz whooped. Even Tyler grinned. Marco came to sputtering. To everyone's shock, he grabbed Kira's hand and raised it in the air. Respect. He grunted before slinking away. 1 month later, Ridgeview High had changed. Tyler now sat with the AV club. Turns out he's a tech whiz. Diaz's wrestling team had a new assistant coach, Kira, of course. And Marco? He'd started an anti-bullying campaign at West Side after Kira volunteered to teach self-defense classes. At lunch, Kira no longer sat alone. Her table was packed with kids from every clique, united by something stronger than fear. As the bell rang, Kira smiled to herself. Maybe moving so much wasn't so bad after all. The end.